We are not a congregationless church. We're a worldwide church, and we take seriously the Great Commission to go into all the world and preach the gospel. The very last words that Jesus spoke as he left his disciples there on the hill were to take this message of salvation first to Jerusalem, to Judea, and Samaria, and then to the rest of the world. We have several ways of doing that as a church. We have radio and television, several worldwide television programs. Radio, for years we've had shortwave radio that have reached into the farthest country corners of the world. We also have full-time missionaries. Our church has sent out some full-time missionaries. They go sometimes for 5, 6 years and go for another term, 10, 12 years, and give their time to go into the mission field and to preach the gospel, to let people know about the soon coming of Jesus. And then we have lay people. Lay people work through organizations like Maranatha and 3ABN, and they go out and they do many things to spread the gospel at their own expense. Then we have a program called Student Missionaries, and that was founded about 50 years ago by our own college in Walla Walla. 50 years ago, and they had 750 student missionaries out this year. Alexandra, the product of this very school right here, was one of those student missionaries last year, and she's going to share with us some of her experiences she had on the island of Saipan. And she's also my granddaughter.
He told me not to take up all the time with his introduction. I might have done that, so see how this goes. All right. Since I've been back, I've tried to make sense of everything that we went through in Saipan. As you all know, it was a little bit of a rough journey. While we were there, we had a lot of highs and lows of emotions, but one Bible verse that we all remembered, because it's so simple probably, is Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Last year, I was a freshman at Walla Walla University, and 3 of my girlfriends and I decided we were going to go to Pohnpei to be student missionaries and to learn how to serve. That was our big kicker. So we went to the student missions office and we began filling out the application process. Very excited, really ready to go and be student missionaries together. Within 1 week, all 3 of my girlfriends decided next year wasn't going to be the year for them. So that left me on my own thinking about going to Pohnpei. I had filled out my entire application packet and turned it in, and then avoided the student mission office as much as I possibly could. I screened their phone calls, I would not come by when they asked, and I didn't even want to think about leaving the country next year. One particular day, I had screened a call from Jeannie Voorhees, who was the SM coordinator. I listened to the voicemail and she pleaded with me to come by the office and let me know what I was thinking. At that time, I thought, no way. Walla Walla is a pretty comfortable, nice little place. I have lots of friends, and I am enjoying my classes somewhat. And at that time, I was doing some homework in my room, in my dorm, and I had probably 12 devotional books that I had received from graduating at Auburn a year before. There was one particular devotional book that was probably about this thick that I had not even touched since I moved into my dorm room, that had been sitting on my top shelf. I decided that day, at that moment, for some reason, that I would grab that daunting book off of my shelf and look at it. When I took the book, I kind of thumbed over it, and when I opened it, I plopped it on my desk, and I could not believe what I saw. On the left-hand page, there was a picture of a gorgeous palm tree with a beautiful white sandy beach and the ocean that looked like the bluest blue on the most amazing setting. But what really just threw me totally off guard was the right-hand page. It said, with one single verse on an entire page, "Go into the world and preach the good news to all creation." That was it. That was my sign. I was ready to go to Pohnpei. I didn't need those girls. I was going to go. I was going to be a teacher, learn how to serve. I ran to the SM office. I was sitting there waiting to talk to my SM coordinator. I was tapping on everything. I was jittery, probably like I am now. I was excited. I was ready to go rush in there and tell her, Jeannie, send me to Pohnpei, buy my ticket, I'm ready to go. I finally, after what seemed like forever, Was able to go sit in her SM office and talk to her, tell her my story, and tell her how I was ready to go. Then I got some news that I wasn't exactly excited about. She informed me that it would be difficult for me to go to Pompeii because it was a very popular destination and they usually didn't accept freshman applicants. At that moment, I thought to myself, God, why do you toy with my emotions like this? I wanted to scream about it. But then in Matthew 18:4 it says, "Whoever therefore shall humble himself as the kingdom of heaven." That was it. I knew I was toast. It wasn't my choice, and I had to sink it into my stubborn head that this was out of my control. It was up to God, and at that moment I had to surrender, and I said, "Jeannie, put me wherever there's a need." And that was the first time I was ever introduced to a place called Saipan. About 3 months later, I was on an airplane to Hawaii for our SM orientation. Basically, it's a crash course where they try to explain to us college students how to be teachers in 3 days. Here you can see the entire group of student missionaries that went out to the islands, not all over the rest of the world, but this is just the core group that was going to the various islands. Here you can see the 5 of us that ended up going to Saipan together. These girls, I will never probably become any closer to anyone in my life. Arriving in Saipan, we didn't really know what to expect. We had no idea, but we were greeted with one of the most amazing, loving groups of people that I could ever imagine. Saipan is one of the most amazing and gorgeous places in the world. It didn't matter which sunset, they were all beautiful night after night. If you can see, there was natural beauty mixed in with some of the ugly, deteriorating old buildings. As you can see, there's a reef that goes mostly around the entire island that made it completely smooth and flat when you walked on the beaches, and everything looked completely like glass. All the sweatshops on the island that had originated there have been closing in the last few years, leaving people jobless, and the economy continues to decline. With the declining of the economy, unfortunately, there are many poker houses that are emerging all over the island. A huge part of Saipan is the rich history that they have there with, as you can see, with some of the Japanese war memorials. That was a kid that we found part of a gun when we were on one of our beach hikes. As you can see on this slide, this is really the lasting message that was said after the tragedies and everything that happened there with the different battles that took place. It was a big sign that said, "May peace prevail on earth," and I thought that was a really neat area of the memorial. Continuing on the island tour, you can see some of the island's beauty. This is Forbidden Island, and this is Bird Island as a natural bird sanctuary. We didn't find many shells. I was going to bring some back for Grandma, but it was mostly coral, and the snorkeling there was absolutely amazing. It was just beautiful. You can see some of our little missionary kids that went with us. Our church was kind of together with the dental clinic, and it was together all on the same property, which was also walking distance from the beach, which was nice. Our youth group, we were very active, and Sabbath afternoons were usually consisted of hikes and adventures. Here you can see Cindy and I on the top of a rock as we had gone on one little hike one day. And this day, I don't know if you can see us right there up in the trees, but we got locked out of our car one day, which is another story in itself. But we were up in the jungle waiting for 3.5 hours, so we climbed a few trees. Now I'm going to show you how the 5 of us were able to live together in one of our apartments. These are the 5 of us girls. We lived in a pretty small area. This is our kitchen living room space, and you can see my roommate Lisa, she's down there. We actually had salt water for our sink, so we bought the big drums of water every day, basically, because we went through them like crazy. On this next picture, on the right, you can see upstairs where Lisa and I lived in our loft, and on the left, I don't know if you can see it right here, is a little lizard. We had thousands of those living with us all the time, so that was interesting. And then here you can see our room that we stayed for in our house. On the left, you can see our aloe garden, which was amazing for how much we got sunburned. It came in big time handy. And on the right, you can see our saltwater showers. And yes, we used the same towel for the beach that we did the shower with. It was interesting. Here you can see what happens on the rare or not so rare occasion of 5 girls living together, working 10+ hour days. Unfortunately, one day while I was doing these dishes, I saw one of these guys, which I actually got used to after a few months because we had about 10 every day that we killed. So these, on the other hand, Charlotte told me to keep them very far away. It was one of the spiders that we had caught, and somehow I ended up being the one holding the picture for it. But taking you outside, this is the view almost every night that I got before I went to sleep. Here you can see our starfruit tree, and the neighbors find it really amusing when I would go climb up in it and shake the branches until one of my roommates, Holly, would run around with a bucket underneath trying to catch all of them. And this is my other roommate, Cindy. She made guava jam, which if you guys haven't ever had a fresh guava, I strongly suggest it because it's by far one of my favorite fruits. This is us going to the Thursday night market where we got most of our fruits and vegetables. We tried to avoid grocery stores as much as possible because, as you can see, a gallon of milk is $10. So the prices were a little bit ridiculous, in my opinion. This was a sequence of 3 pictures taken in one day that happened when our first typhoon experience came along. I don't know, my mom probably told you quite a bit about that when she was freaking out when I wouldn't call her for a few days, but this is mid through the day, and then this is by the evening. You can really see the storm coming in the distance. A police officer, after we had taken this picture, told us we needed to get to higher ground. And all of a sudden, these tsunami evacuation route signs became a lot more helpful when we thought they were a joke at the beginning of the year. Here is when the typhoon was first coming. We're back at the house, and we had got off work, and they told us to pack up whatever belongings we could within an hour because we needed to evacuate because that tin roof you see is the first thing that gets stripped off in the wind. Needless to say, we left a lot. We packed as much as we could into our tiny pickup truck. You can see our cereal and canned foods and everything. This is when we were actually driving back a day after the typhoon. This is when the roads were safe, and this was considered the good weather. So we headed back to our house, and we were really happy to see that it was all in one piece, and only a few trees had fallen over. Now to change gears on you guys, this is one of my absolute favorite places on the island. It's called the Grotto. The grotto is basically a swimming hole that's tucked under this amazing cliff, and beneath the surface of the water, there's 2 larger holes that divers usually go that lets the water come in and out. Unfortunately, with that comes a very dangerous path to get there with the changing of the tide. Another one of our favorite pastimes was cliff jumping, and yes, my parents knew I did this, so I'm not going to get in trouble with this picture. These are some of the underwater snorkeling shots. One of the dentists had an amazing camera. We weren't scuba diving, but we had a lot of fun playing in their bubbles. The next slide that I'm going to show you is right before Christmas time. We actually went into the school warehouse, the storage unit, and found an old Christmas tree, and we decorated it with seashells, and my grandma sent us Martha Stewart glitter, so we decorated them, and it was really fun. But I was blessed enough to be able to have my parents and my boyfriend come for a small amount of time. They were able to visit, and I was able to show them some of the island's beauty. They enjoyed the sunsets probably as much as I did. You can see my dad with his little video camera being a little tourist. It was fun. Now to get to the main reason why I went to Saipan. I went for these kids. The sunsets, the hikes, the culture, it was all just in addition to the true blessing I received while being on that island. My students literally stole my heart. I had a classroom that I taught with Miss Edna. As you can see here, she's the most amazing Filipino woman I've ever met in my entire life. Her and I taught a class at the Child Development Center. We had a pre-kindergarten classroom. We had 20 to 22 students on average. And let me tell you a little bit about our day. We got there at 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes a little bit earlier, and I worked in the office for an hour, but then we fed them breakfast, lunch, and a snack time. We had them from around 7:30 to 5:30, and at 3:30 we had ages 18 months to 5 years old. So I got my whole fair share of diaper changing, pulling mischievous older boys of mine off bookshelves, listening to them sing to me in Korean, which is a language I have yet to master, and their laughter to straight up stubbornness, where I just can't imagine ever having children, ever. But you can just see they're so full of life and they're so happy and so much trouble at the same time. They're just an amazing group. This is my daughter, supposedly. Every time we went on a field trip, Kiwan is her name, she would not ever let go of me. If I did, you can see me trying to pull away and her face like getting all squished up. And she'd go, "Miss Alex, no!" She was my little attachment, basically. But if you can look through all these slides that I just showed you, my kids, they made it worth it. The hard hours and the long days were 100% worth my time. I wouldn't trade anything about the moments that I spent with them. I could really write an entire book about how many times God protected us when we were in harm's way, to be honest. I know that God has a huge plan for that school, and when we were trying to do things one way, we got thrown something in our face in another direction, and more than ever, we could see how much we needed to surrender what we were doing to God. At the beginning of the year, we had troubles with the administration slightly, and then when the robbers graced their presence at our compound 5 times in 8 days, we all became closer together. When the typhoon struck and the super typhoon was bound to hit the island, we came together bonding in prayer for protection. When the shootings happened on the island, we prayed for the families that now had members lost and silently lifted prayers, thanking them it wasn't us or our students. And when we thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. And at that time, we knew that God had bigger plans for this place. And you know, when I think about the relationships I made with my students, my church members, and the locals, I couldn't be more thankful. I'm home and I'm safe. I have nothing to complain about. But more than anything, I was blessed by being at this place. Saipan as a whole, honestly, I can say is one of the best experiences of my life, and I would go back and do it all over again. I remember talking to my parents one day when I was at home terribly sick, and they were telling me, "Honey, it's just the medicine, you're okay." But I remember crying on them and saying, "I'm not making a difference here. I want to go to Kenya. I want to go somewhere that they need my help. I'm just babysitting these kids. I won't be making a difference in their lives. They won't remember my name a month after I leave. They're babies." Fast forwarding 5 months, the day before I left Saipan, I was saying my goodbyes to the 6 Filipino women that I worked with. And one of them in particular came up and hugged me, and with tears in her eyes, she said to me, "You are the daughter I never had." That made it all worth it. When I think about, my parents always told me, "You will never know the life you touched until you're in heaven." God said, "I have plans for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." I was able to teach a 5-year-old who had never heard God's name how to pray for the first time. God had a huge plan for all of us. I never thought I would be in Saipan, but you know, God can use you anywhere. When I felt the utter guilt for returning home, I had one of my girls from Saipan call me. They said, "Alex, God can use you wherever you are. You just need to be open to His plan and stop being so stubborn and trying to figure it out on your own." How honest and true. Because the largest challenge in my own life is letting go of my ideas and my plans and my lists and giving God total control. Not trying to interject when I don't like what's happening. And today I'm going to give you one of the biggest challenges and the hardest thing that I have. And that is to say, "God, use me." Exodus 23:20 says, "See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place that I have prepared." God has a place and a plan for each of us. When we think we've been disregarded and forgotten, guess what? We're not. He's always there and he's always aware. And I know that it might be far-fetched for us to be able to take off a year and go be a missionary. But what it does, it really even mean to be a missionary. Do we really have to go off to a foreign third world country to be able to speak about his word? No, we don't. Although I'm a huge advocate of the worldwide mission program, I know there's just as many people here in our hometown that need our help. And although people in high school, my Bible teachers, my pastors, they told me that I could show Jesus and help others just by being a shining light for him. And when I was at that point in my life, I was more distracted by the excitement of going on spring break to the new mission field or what project we'd be working on. When I look back at high school, I see so many missed opportunities that God put right in my lap. There were times that I could have shared his love to others, but I wasn't even receiving what he was giving me. I wish I could have just taken up those opportunities, and I know I could have made a difference in some people's lives. I beg you not to miss those opportunities. Put yourself out there and ask God to show you an opportunity. Ask him to put it right in your face so it's so obvious you can't ignore it. The total conclusion I've drawn from my time as a student missionary is he has the whole world in his hands. Before I close, I want to express my complete and utter gratitude and thankfulness for your guys' support through prayers and through finances. I know there's no way I couldn't have been there and made it through what I did without my home church. I also want to ask you to remember my aunties, my big sisters that are still in Saipan, and for the missionaries that are all around the world. My grandpa mentioned that this is the 50th anniversary of the student missions program, but it has also been the largest return rate of student missionaries before the time is over. In India, there's been circumstances very close to my own that some of my girlfriends had to return early also. Pray for them and what they went through. This week, I'm really going to challenge you to put yourself out there, to ask God to use you. You never know what can come out of your openness to another. For me, it created these lifelong lasting relationships with a bond with 4 girls that I would always call my sisters. He knows the beginning and the end. He knows our plan, and he has the whole world in his hands.
Maybe we ought to have the benediction. That was fantastic, Alexandra. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I should have went first. Many people have asked me, what is the one-day church program all about? And I've tried to explain it to you. Let me share with you a little bit how the one-day church, and most of you have heard of it. How many have not heard of the one-day church? Okay, there's a few that haven't. The rest of you, I assume, have. The one-day church is actually what it says. It's a church that we ship to different areas in the world, and we install it in one day. 1 day's time. A little crew installs it 1 day. Why is there a need for that? In Africa, let me share with you only about Africa, because we're shipping them all over the world. That's where we're working at now in Zambia. Africa is a country that has just got millions of people, and just narrow it down to Zambia. Zambia is a union in itself. Now, we are the North Pacific Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. That takes in Idaho, Oregon, Montana, Washington, and Alaska. That's a union. We have, in our union, how many, let's see, in our, I don't know how many members we have in our union. But in North American Division, which is the entire North American area, we have 1 million members. In the Union of Zambia, one little country, they have 650,000 members. That's one union, little area. And there are thousands of people over there worshiping underneath little trees, and they have a rainy season. Some of them have built a thatch roof building of some type or another, little shack of a building that they're worshiping under, and those start to leak after a while, and they just get to be useless. My friend Garland McNeilis, 10 years ago, realized that in some areas of Africa, they have part of the building built, but they can never afford to get the steel to put on top of the roof, the galvanized sheets. So he started a project called Roofs Over Africa, and he literally put thousands of roofs up over Africa. Then he realized that that was not doing the total job, and there needed to be a real quick church that we could put up. To give you an idea, when we was in India, we built, the one time we was there, we built 55 churches, and that cost $550,000. The money is not there to build those kind of churches all over the world. The church that we put up as a one-day church, total thing costs $3,000, and usually it's installed by the local people, or Maranatha brings a group over and helps to install it. You can buy one of those churches for $1,500 because they have matching funds that have been contributed. So for $3,000, they can put a church up that will handle up to 300 to 400 people. And I want to share with you some of the things that we've done with that one-day church and show you a little bit of the area over there. And I'm going to do that with slides. I have quite a few slides, so believe it or not, I won't be saying a lot. I'll just be showing you a lot of pictures. So let's see what we got here. This is a container that was shipped from the United States. They ship these every week somewhere. They hold 38 churches, and when we get them on site, we take them down and take out the material and sort it in areas. So when we go out to a site, we take just the material that we need. But 38 one-day churches go in that container. That is not the roofing material. The roofing material we buy on site, but that's included in the cost of $3,000. And we have a big crane that takes it off and sets it on the ground. And now this is the school. When we were there in December, Lauren was there. I'm glad Lauren's here today. Lauren was invaluable to us because his total job for the last 25, 30, 35 years has been putting in self-tapping screws. And that's the bottleneck, getting the roofs on these. And we asked Lauren to go over there and help us, and he just learned it so quickly and did such a beautiful job that we really appreciate it. But we built 2 schools with, I forget how many buildings, but I think about 14 buildings on each school. And then we were in the process of the last 2 trips over there, we built 54 churches. This is the site where one of the schools are. I can't see it too well back there, but the slabs were pre-poured with the stakes put in the ground. And then we would go to work. And this is the church that was on this one site. There was already a church there. It's called Downway 1. And the church or the school is just to the left of that. And this is one of the bathrooms that was built there. We want to have good, clean, sanitary bathrooms, not the type we found when we got over there. And this happens to be the men's bathroom for the school. The school will have about 800,000 students in it when it's completed, and it will start this fall. That's an aerial view of the school completed. When we build the churches, and you'll see as the churches go up, you'll see some of these pictures, the churches do not have walls. The walls have to be put up by the local congregation. We just want to keep the weather off of them. And these people are so thankful. They have their own bricks that they make out of their own clay. And they also have blocks that are very inexpensive. And they'll put up their own walls and doors. And we supply the doors and windows, but they install them. And it takes sometimes a year and a half for them to get that done, but they get it done. Again, that's an aerial view. This is another side of one of the schools, and you'll see more of that as we go. There's 4 different buildings that will be built on that as it steps down. Some of them will be double classrooms, some will be single classrooms. This gentleman on the left, on my left up there, is the manager of Riverside Farms. It's a well-known farm in Zambia that's been there for years, run by the Seventh Day Adventist Church. And he does just an unbelievable job of managing that. His name is Alan, and of course that's Garwin, my friend there. Again, some of the slabs that we put on, and I'm going to run through these quite quickly. This was part of my crew. My job was to put up all of those tall stakes, and then I had to put the braces on after the buildings were up. Of course, I had a crew to do that, so I managed the crew. I hear Lauren laughing over there. Come on, Lauren. I got it done. That was one of my best guys I had. He just did an excellent job. He wrote me a letter and asked me to set him up in business. And I'd asked him, when I got back over the second time, I said, how much money did you need for your business? He said about $2.5 million American dollars. I said, I'll talk to the pastor. Here's one of the buildings being put up there on the campus of where one of the schools are. And this is a church building going up, and I believe, I can't tell for sure, Lauren, if I say the wrong church, it don't really matter, I guess. I think this was called the College Church. And again, back on the school site. Here's the roofing crew going to work. This one Lauren did, the roofing, and he did some building too, but they worked in short hours, whether 6, 7 hours a day, Lauren. One day, Darwin told Lauren they're going to go home early tomorrow. They worked 12 hours. They're going home early tomorrow. You got to remember, it was the middle of the summer, and it was in the high 90s and 100 degrees. And next day, we're going to go home early, and I think you got home at 6, didn't you? It wasn't in the morning, it was in the evening. This is some of this school, as you see it going up. These bottles that we drink our water out of, these young little kids, you pick them up and then sell those for a few pennies. You got to remember the going rate over the wage over there is about $1.80 a day is what they make. Again, just part of the school going up, as you see there. That's all made out of the same thing as One-Day Church. This One-Day Church that we made into a school. Now there's some guy that we've hired to go to work over there, and that's what he did. This picture was taken after about a week and 12-hour days. And Lord told me he'd never been so tired in his life. They're doing a little planning, some of the guys. Again, we're looking at the school as it's starting to be completed. We did the entire school. We completed the walls, the doors, the windows, stucco, and then painted the school, and it'll be all done by fall. There was 2 of them, Domway 1 and Domway 2. This is that's the second one there. That's the Domway 2 one. This was a little chapel we built on the school campus. We did that on both of them. They're going to use it for multi-purpose building, for anything they need, including Dorcas ladies. The Dorcas work over there, which is, what do they call it now? Community services. Very active. They all wear blue dresses with white collars. They're very proud of their work, and they do a good job. Inside the chapel. And that's the chapel as it's getting finished on the school campus. Again, this is between the old church on the right there, the old church right here. They were very proud of that church. It was just an ugly, ugly building. But when we started painting our campus, we told them that they wanted to paint the church themselves. We'd supply the paint. And boy, the whole church came out and painted that in about 2 days. That whole thing made it just beautiful. They poured this slab in the front, and then this whole area here was made for drain. When it rains over there, it rains. And this is all made to drain clear down off away from the campus. Now I want to show you a few pictures of one of the 7 wonders of the world, natural wonders of the world, is Victoria Falls. We're only about 10 minutes away from the falls. And I hadn't gotten to see them, and I called home, and Carol said, don't come home unless you see the falls. I'm not known for seeing too much of the items that are over there to see, but this falls is something but to behold. It's beautiful. I had a call for an aerial view that was taken from an ultralight plane, and 3ABN did not get it to me in time, so I couldn't include it. But it's just gorgeous. You can see that from miles away when the water's really coming over in the rainy season. The mist from it just can be seen for miles. And there's a picture of me to show you that I was there. This bridge is quite famous for. It's more famous now than it was, Lauren. This is where they bungee jump off. And Lauren did all 3 of them. He did the bungee jump and the swing. And what was the other one? Zip line. And he said one of them scared him to death. He thought he was dead. And I said, well, he didn't even tell me he was doing it. I didn't think he was done with his work yet. I was hoping to finish his work first. But it's a gorgeous falls, gorgeous views, and things God has given us to enjoy an area where you see so much poverty, and then all of a sudden you see this. And you know, this area is so famous because of Dr. David Livingstone. The town is named after him, and he was the first white man to see this falls. Of course, these pictures don't do this justice, but it's amazing. This is one of the churches that we were replacing. They had put up their framework themselves, so we finished it by putting the roof on. But that's the church that we're worshiping in underneath it.
And as soon as they got the roof on the old one, they tore that down. But that's what, that is actually one of the better churches that they were worshiping in. I'm not sure what that picture is. Oh, this is an area where we're way out in the bush country. They had to clear it all off. And that was the only job that the congregation had to do, was clear their own spot. And if they didn't clear the spot, they didn't get a church. And so this was all ready to go when we went out there to build this church. And I had the privilege of speaking in several of these churches, in their old church the last time and in the new church the first time. So I thought that was a great honor. But they went out there one day to build a church, and this was all done in one day. And this is called the One-Day Church. And there it is. That's the crew that helped them. Without some of those, they would have got done quicker. And there they are as they drive away. Like Lauren used to tell my customers, and Lauren installed for me, he said, this guy says, I want to help you. Lauren says, we charge more if you help us. There, as we drove away, the church in the background, and here you're going to see what they're going to build the walls out of. This is their own little dry kiln, where they make their own bricks, and they make the bricks out of nothing but the local soil. And then they dry them, and of course, a lot of them are not too good, but some of them work out, but they can make walls for the church out of. And there's another church building that they were worshiping at. And this was a unique area. I forget the name of this, but we went out there, and I think Lauren went with us. Way out in the jungle bush country, we found this congregation that was worshiping the Lord, and they were very, very primitive. And I had the privilege of speaking there. There was no church, but they had cleared off an area up above, and then they had a step-down area like this. And it turned out quite nice because that's the only church that we built with the regular church, and then we put another lean-to on it out of the same material for Sabbath school rooms. And you'll see a picture right there. You see how that little lean-to is? And we could do that because it stepped down and gave us room for the people wouldn't bang their heads. Just some pictures of some of the churches that were put up in Zambia. We're not through. We're over there continuing, and probably we'll put up, they want thousands. They're talking about thousands. And there's areas over there that we haven't got into, Malawi and some of the others. But this is one of the churches that was just put up and worshiping in it for the very first time. I think I had the church service there. And of course, Lauren, he had fun with the kids. This is near what they call the railroad church. They made it out of railroad ties as a framework, and then we put the roof on it, and it was right near a railroad. So what else should you call it but the railroad? This is the inside of one of the churches that have been there probably 20, 25 years, and it leaked quite badly, and we took it down. I think this is called the Hill Church. I spoke in that building twice, and when we were there, just before we started to build a church for them, the division president was there, and it was crowded, really crowded. People came from everywhere, and he had a little call for people to continue to study and to learn more about the Lord and to be baptized eventually. And just from that little church building full of people, about 27 people came forward wanting to learn more. They're just anxious to hear the gospel, hear about the saving power of Jesus Christ. Plan of salvation is soon coming. This is looking down from what we call the Hill Church, because it's right on the hill, looking down into a little poor village. And I say poor village because the people that work in this, that live in, worship in this church, as I'm going to show you, actually they make a living by breaking rock with a hammer. They break rock down to the size of gravel that they use to travel roads and use it in concrete. All day long they hit that with a hammer. Break that rock, and if they're really good at it, they can make $2 a day. If not, it's around $1.20 a day. This is this church will be dedicated next week by Elder Ted Wilson from the General Conference just as a gesture of their support. And I was supposed to be there, but I told him I couldn't go. I had to speak at Pure. No, I just didn't want to go just for that, because we need to go when we can be used. But you'll see what this church looks like as we went up. It's the only church that we put a baptistry in, and you'll see that here pretty soon. Those, I can't tell how clearly on that back there, but I think that we had the conference president, the union president, and the division president all there in one day. There's the baptistry up front. We didn't dedicate this church. We had a service there just to, as they moved in, they walked from the old church to the new one, and it was on a Sabbath afternoon, and it was a highlight of our trip. You see the little buildings on the left there. These are Sabbath school rooms over here. There's 3 of them, and it turned out very nicely the way they put them. You see the aerial view here. This is the old church right here. This is the way you come in, right down through there. And this is the old church. It's down. That's going to be parking. We're trying to buy this piece here, so they got parking and places for kids to meet and stuff. This is a preschool. Oops, went back. Can you go back on that one? Because that's very important. Well, wait a minute. I can go over here. This is a preschool right there. Right there. This is the caretaker. This is the old bathroom right there. We're going to put in a brand new bathroom for them. Sabbath school rooms, Sabbath school rooms, Sabbath school rooms, and then of course the church is there. And this congregation got the best church and the best facilities over there because of their ambition. They went out and cleared that spot and had everything we asked them to do, they did immediately. So we're very proud of them for doing that. And here they are, we're making a living, breaking rock. Unbelievable. I've seen this in several parts of the world, but never this type of rock. Usually it's old bricks or something that breaks a little easier. Again, one of the churches, this one was way out in the bush country, and I took this picture about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These people have been out there all day building on this church. They probably got out there about 9 o'clock. We were supposed to take lunches out. The people that took the lunches out couldn't find them. So Karen, Maranatha lady, asked me if I thought I could find them, and I did, but it took us about an hour. They were a long ways out in the bush country. Let's get through these. That's a college church there. These people is one that got their lunches, and we're glad to get them. And give you an idea what these look like. I'm going to take a look this way, I can see better. Now this is called the Highlands Church. And it's very interesting because if I had been over here taking a picture, you could have seen the falls down there about 15 miles away because the mist of it was coming up. That was my friend Darwin doing a little planning. This, I've left it in there. Now, you can't see what it is, but there's bird's nests up there. You see them? I forget the name of those birds. Some of you will know those, but I don't. There's a cute little guy, I think. You ever seen that black mamba up close? Well, I did. If they bite you, you're dead. They have this guy in 2 different compartments because they've got to close one off completely when they put anything in there. Because these guys are aggressive. He came right over to that window and was ready to strike at us when we took that picture. Very aggressive. This is the division president. Very, very nice man that is very energetic. And I was supposed to speak on Sabbath, and he and 2 other conference president, union president was with me, and on the way up there, I realized I got guys here that should be speaking because they're never going to be out at this church again. So I told him, I said, you've got to have the church service. And he said, no, you go ahead. No, I said, you have the church service. And he did. And did a beautiful job. I was glad I thought about doing that. There's a couple of my little friends. And again, in the school, you see the overhangs they make those so that when the rainy season, the kids can walk between classes without getting wet. Another church out in the jungle. The second Sabbath I spoke at that church. Now this is a very important little piece of land. This is about 10 acres of land that has been given to us by the city of Livingston so we can put up an academy. They want us to, we want to, because we have no schools. It's amazing when we got over the Seventh Adventist Church had no church schools, no academies. Our kids have to go to the Catholic school, and they have to go on Sabbath. So we're going to build an academy there as soon as we get the title to that. Don Noble is president of Maranatha. Very wise individual has carried Maranatha a long ways since he's been there. That's Laura, his wife. And this picture here is so important because that's my friend Darwin, that just had both knees replaced. That's Alice Kirkman. And they were comparing their scars. And this is Don getting a good look at it. Don Kirkman. They were over there for just 3 days. And then, of course, we have to close with a sunset over the Zambezi River, just above the falls. The falls is just right there. And again, another picture, beautiful sunset picture. And now we're going to show you what the one-day church is really all about. If we can do it. It's all in about 6 hours. Thank you. That's good enough. Thank you for listening, and now you know a little more about the one-day church. And Alexandra, I want to thank you so much for being a beautiful job. Let's have a prayer. Father, what a joy it is that we can be about your business. Sometimes we step out in areas we don't even know where we're going, but you always bless. You're always there for us. You always have a plan. If we get ahead of you, you slow us down. If we get behind you, you speed us up. Thank you. Bless this church, and may we each one rededicate our lives not only to the support of this church in the way that it should be supported, but in the worldwide work. And help us to always have you first in our mind, realizing you're coming soon. And we praise your name in Christ's name. Amen.